Reliant Water Technologies Wet Well Wizard, a solution to the two most common collection system problems. Every city, no matter the size, has a collection system, and the larger it is, the more problems operations personnel encounter. The two most common problems are odor, commonly caused by the buildup of H2S within the system, and fog, or fats, oil, and grease buildup. Together, they not only take up extended operator time, but can become extremely costly in chemicals, bioaugmentation treatments, wet well cleaning and vacuuming, corrosion replacement, and pump control repairs. The Reliant Wet Well Wizard is a combination of the patented Wizard itself, made completely of HDPE and 316 stainless steel, incorporating interpodal internal baffles designed to cleave and spin large bubbles for the purpose of agitating the water in the wet well, adding dissolved oxygen to the water, and emulsifying coagulated fog, and never letting it return again. The air feed hose is made of a 2-ply polyethylene PVC and nylon braided air hose with 316 stainless steel camlock fittings on both ends, and a low-volume, high-pressure 2-stage regenerative blower that can drive up to 4 wizards depending on the volume of the lift station. Blower horsepower is based on the depth of the wet well, the altitude of the lift station, and the number of wizards at that lift station. While H2S is caused by a combination of the waste materials entering the collection system and the waste products of the microbial population in the wet well water, fog is commonly the first problem that must be resolved. Fog caps form because of the fats, oils, and grease that enter the system, primarily from the gray water entering the system from residential and public eating establishments. Thin grease caps will form slowly in areas with less homes or eating establishments, but as these concentrations increase, the grease caps will become thicker, often getting in excess of 3 feet thick. It is not uncommon for grease caps to form around float-level switches, and because of the cap's weight, actually pull the float right off of its cable. With the Wet Well Wizard, all of these grease cap experiences can be a thing of the past. Most efforts of using air to combat wet well odor and fog have been based around fine bubble aeration technology and inexpensive non-industrial grade air pumps or blowers. At the inception of our testing, Reliant Water realized that it was the microbial population that was causing all of the problems, and if successfully treated, that same population could be the answer to all of the problems. Every wet well always contains some standing water. Due to the wastes moving through the collection system, that standing water builds a huge anaerobic microbial population. The wastes of those anaerobes is always nitrogen-based, and when mixed with the other chemicals and wastes in the system, H2S is formed over time. Eventually, the connector lines between the lift stations also become the home of the same anaerobic microbial population. Notice in this graph that the dissolved oxygen content at the beginning of a trial was always 0 or almost 0. Within just a matter of days, with the use of the Wet Well Wizard, that DO level could be raised to a level of 5 ppm dissolved oxygen even after a pump-out condition. It seems as though 5 ppm is the normal maximum in wet wells. By continuously checking ORP, oxidation reduction potential, of the wet well water at the low water level, just after the pump-off sequence, the natural change of the microbial population is simple to track, and the transition of the anaerobes to an aerobic microbial population always tracked the increase in dissolved oxygen. Once the microbial population in the wet well becomes aerobic, it is impossible for H2S gas to form, and because aerobes are more aggressive than anaerobes, the microbes passing downstream will build a population in the downstream pipes and assist in further elimination of the corrosive gas. Within several weeks, no matter how much grease was in the wet well at the time of wizard installation, the lift station will have a clear water appearance and there will be no odor coming from the well. As long as the Wet Well Wizard system is allowed to operate, the water will always look clear and without odor. Floatable, undissolvable trash will be floating at the top, free and clear of grease or scum, and can be retrieved simply with a screen scoop. The installation of the Wet Well Wizard is simple and can normally be accomplished within 45 minutes. The blower will be purchased either with or without a cover. There is an open-ended cover shown, but there is also a closed, vented fiberglass and locking boxes that will allow for total weather and dust protection and sound suppression. Without the sound suppressing cover, the blower emits only 68 decibels. The customer may also desire to make his own weather cover or to place the blower inside of a control structure. Power is supplied to the blower, and one end of the air hoses are connected to the blower manifold using the cam lock connectors provided. Finding a way into the wet well may become the most time-consuming issue. Most lift stations have a large diameter conduit within which to run the hose, but if not, there are other entries that can be used. Here we have inserted the hose through the lift station vents. Pull the hose or hoses through the lift station door and connect the wizard to the hose using the cam lock fittings. If the grease cap is thicker than 6 inches, it is best to use some sort of cutting tool to cut through the cap. Ask for Reliant Water Technical Bulletin TB-WW1 for a clear description on how to make such a device. By slicing a thick cap into a number of cuts, the agitation action of the wizard from below the cap will segment the cap and begin to form rolling fatbergs that will quickly dissolve. If this cutting action is not performed for thick grease caps, it might take several days to completely get rid of the cap with only the wizard agitation. Once the cap is sliced, dropping the wizard into place will be simple. It is important to keep the wizards as far away from the pump volutes as possible, and it might be necessary to tie wrap the hose to fixtures at the top of the well to hold the wizards in place. In this video, which is a larger 12-foot wet well, 2 wizards are required. The following is a video of a wizard installation showing the agitation and water quality effects of the wet well wizard. Note how the cutting action of the slicing tool segments the fog cap. Imagine the bottom of the cap, where slices in the cap are exposed, where the wizard bubbles will enter. Within the first 15 minutes, the bubble action of the wizard has not only broken through the 12-inch fog cap, but it is causing the slices made by the cutting tool to break up. 20 hours after the wizard installation, the fog cap is completely gone, but there are still some minor pieces of grease that have been trapped behind pipes and other vertical structures. Notice how black the water is. It is totally anaerobic. Over time, as the dissolved oxygen rises in the water, it will become more clear and all odors are eliminated, unless they are coming from lift stations upstream. 60 days later, notice the clarity of the water. You can actually see through it. In this case, the dissolved oxygen was just over 5 parts per million, and there was no odor other than a musky water smell coming from the lift station. This is visual proof of what the Wet Well Wizard can do for a collection system.